Order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for the Home Department, Shirley Dewhirst. Marvellous.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with your permission I will group this response with question 9. We were elected on a commitment to close all asylum hotels, and that's what we will do. In June 2024 there were 29,561 asylum seekers in hotels, which later peaked at 38,054 the following December, thanks to the awful legacy of the party opposite. As we've started to grip the crisis in asylum accommodation, those numbers are reduced to 36,273 in September 2025, with the next release of statistics coming at the end of this month, where I have absolutely no doubt that it will have fallen significantly even further.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I think the Minister has made it quite clear that since the general election, the numbers of individuals in asylum hotels has risen by 22%. Now, that clearly is at odds with his party's manifesto pledge. So can I ask the Minister what further action he is taking to reduce the number of individuals in migrant hotels, and can he guarantee the House that there will be no new migrant hotels in this country?
Well, Minister. Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is undergoing an adventure in statistics, because he, of course, compared one statistic from before the season where crossings crossed with one at the end. So let's compare a like for like. Because in September 2023, the last time his colleagues here were in government, there were more than 54,000 people in asylum accommodation. By September 2025, that number had reduced to 36,000. That's a reduction of a third. That is what's happening. We want to go further because, frankly, one is too many. So that's why we've introduced the asylum policy statement. That's why we're introducing the use of large sites, of course opposed by his front bench. He talks about wanting to make sure there are no hotels closed. We won't open new hotels, but I will say, if he thinks that can be done, without opening large sites, well, those wrong, and the front bench will soon have to learn that. Thank you.
Shastri-Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A number of my constituents have written to me requesting details of the future of the George Hotel, which is one of the asylum hotels in Solihull town centre. Given the statistics that the Minister has just provided, can he provide some clarity to my constituents as to when the George will close?
Minister.
Well, I understand from the honourable gentleman, I've seen previous contributions he's made. I know for his community it's exceptionally important that that hotel is closed. It will be. I won't give a running commentary in the chamber as to when each individual hotel will be closed, but my message for Solihull, my message indeed for any community that has a hotel, these were hotels opened by the Conservatives and they'll be closed by Labour.
Andrew Ranger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Trust and confidence are the cornerstones of a functioning asylum system, yet both were damaged in Wrexham recently due to an unclear and poorly communicated proposal for large HMO to be used for asylum accommodation. Following years of Tory failure, we've inherited a chaotic system, wasteful contracts signed by the previous government that frequently bypass local input. Can the Minister please reassure my constituents that the Department is finally moving away from this inherited mess and reforming its strategy to ensure that local communities are fully informed and respected?
Minister.
I totally share my honourable friend's point. I know from my own community, I know from across the country, that when a system is orderly and controlled, the British public lean into it. We saw that with the Afghan scheme, the Syrian scheme, Homes for Ukraine, BNO. But when they aren't orderly and controlled, that's when people get frustrated. And one aspect, exactly as my honourable friend says, is through better engagement between the Home Office and local authorities to make sure that local authorities know where, perhaps in this case, HMOs may or may not be open, but also know what population needs to be supported, and the community can lean into it. So I can give him that absolute assurance that we will be working much more closely with local authorities to make sure they have that information.
Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we're on immigration statistics. When the previous Conservative government signed the contracts that led to these hotels opening, the average cost per asylum seeker was £17,000 a year. By the time of the election, it had risen to almost £50,000 per asylum seeker per year. And this government has been locked into those contracts signed by the previous government. So can the Minister tell us what he is doing to drive down this appalling waste of public money, and what his view is of the break clause that has been the creation of these hotels in the first place?
Minister.
I'm grateful for that question. I am pleased that already during our time in government we've been able to reduce the amount of money that the British taxpayer is spending on hotels by a third. But as I say, that right level is zero. We also have, as he says, the asylum contract, an eye-watering contract that I think if you're being kind as possible to the opposition front bench, does not reflect any system that was intended to be procured. We are in those conversations now as suppliers, but also crucially, as he says, with a break clause coming up and indeed the end of the contract in 2029, we're looking at that closely to get the best possible system at the best possible financial level for the British people.
So Julian Smith.
Number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
We are ensuring forces have the tools and resources they need to deal with rural crime by providing funding of over £800,000 this financial year to the specialist National Rural and Wildlife Crime Units. We are strengthening neighbourhood policing through the Neighbourhood Policing Guarantee, including in rural areas, by ensuring every neighbourhood has named, contactable officers, more visible patrols and a commitment to respond to non-urgent queries within 72 hours.
Sir Julian.
Thank you. With the reorganisation of policing that the government proposes, there's a real risk there's a sort of double whammy of already under-resourced rural areas in policing, then facing further distance between decision makers and those areas. Could I urge her to look carefully about how this reorganisation will impact on the sparsest areas of our country, such as North Yorkshire?
Minister.
I'm very happy to have more conversations with the Honourable Gentleman to reassure him on exactly this point. People in rural areas, I think, often feel that they get the short straw when it comes to policing, and our reforms will end the postcode lottery by setting central targets, increasing transparency and taking robust action where forces are not performing. Our local policing areas will be accountable to the Honourable Gentleman and to the local communities, and will be 100% focused on tackling the scourge of everyday crime.
Chris Spence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As well as representing Harlow, I represent a number of rural communities like Great Canfield, Matching Tye and Nazing. Then I speak to residents in those parts of my constituency. They tell me farm theft and fly tipping is causing a devastating effect on their families and also their livelihood. So can I ask the Minister to tell me what she is doing to ensure we strengthen neighbourhood policing in those rural areas?
Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question and for representing his constituents with the very real problems that they have. We are taking legislative action to tackle farm theft. We know that this has been a scourge that has been on the rise for some time. We are making sure that we can tackle that alongside new powers, statutory guidance for local authorities when it comes to fly tipping, and alongside putting 13,000 more officers right in our streets, in our communities and in his constituency.
So Minister Matt Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rural communities fear mega police forces will suck resources into cities, and police officer numbers are already down by 1,318 under this government. How does the Minister expect police forces to protect rural communities when the APCC have confirmed they are facing a £500 million funding shortfall this year?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the last two budgets have seen funding for policing increased by £2 billion. And, Mr. Speaker, the public haven't forgotten how the previous government acted. They slashed police numbers by 20,000, decimated neighbourhood policing. They then tried to reverse their own cuts and increased officer numbers to chase a headline. But, Mr. Speaker, they were not bothered that 12,000 of them were sat behind desks and not out in our communities. While the members opposite have amnesia about their own record, the Home Secretary and this ministerial team are bringing the bold changes we need to properly reform policing.
Because
anybody wouldn't realise that there are less police on the streets now than there was under the last government, listening to that garbage. NFU Mutual research shows the huge scale of crime affecting rural retailers. Since this government came to office, shoplifting and robberies against businesses have surged. Does the Minister think this is because the government has cut 1,318 police officers, or does she think it's because they refuse to mandate tagging, curfews and bans to serial shoplifters and those who assault retail workers? Which is it? Fewer police or weaker consequences?
Yeah. In rural areas.
Mr. Speaker, in the last 2 years of the Conservative government, shop theft rose 60%. 60% in 2 years. Now, of course, there is a 60% under the last 2 years of the Conservative government. And, Mr Speaker, we are taking the action to protect shop workers that the previous government failed to do with a new offence. We are tackling antisocial behaviour with respect orders. We are putting specialist RASO teams in every police force. We are taking thousands of dangerous knives off our streets. Knife crime is falling. This government is taking the action that the police support, which is to put 13,000 more police on our neighbourhoods, in our neighbourhoods, and to make sure they are tackling the scourge of everyday crime.
Ewan Steinback.
Question 3, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Asylum hotels were a legacy of the last Conservative government. At their peak, there were 400 open across the country as asylum caseworking had ground to a halt. We have already restarted decision-making, increased returns and opened new military sites. We are now closing asylum hotels, and by the end of this Parliament, we will have shut every single one.
Ewan Steinback.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Tories' asylum hotels have divided communities and endangered vulnerable people in communities like Falkirk. But we must be honest, the Inverness Barracks proposal is controversial and will aggravate rather than cool community tensions in Scotland if there is no corresponding urgent movement to close hotels in Scotland. Will the Secretary of State join me this month in visiting Kemper Avenue to see firsthand why the cladding must now be fairly prioritised for closure in the hotel exit plan?
Holmes.
Well, what I would say to my honourable friend is that there are no easy options when you inherit an asylum system that is broken and you have asylum hotels opened by the party opposite in operation across the whole of the country. We do believe that large military sites are a better way of reducing the burden felt by communities across the country, including in Scotland. Let me reassure my honourable friend, by the end of this Parliament, we will get out of every single asylum hotel, including in his constituency.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Home Secretary, in her response, noted the speeding up of processing times. I wonder, though, is enough being done to speed up processing times? Because surely making sure that asylum seekers are processed as fast as possible is the route to closing the hotels.
Well, processing for asylum claims is at its highest, fastest rate for 20 years, so we are moving very quickly to deal with asylum claims. What she does know, though, I'm sure, is that many of those people then go on to appeal, and there is a backlog in the appeals at the court, and that is why we are going to reform our appeal system with legislation due later this year.
Dr. Juven Sander.
Question number 4, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, with your permission, I will group this question with question 11. Alongside publishing the new Wolds strategy, the Government has already launched our behaviour change campaign, rolled out domestic abuse protection orders in selected areas. We are embedding domestic abuse specialists in police control rooms under Reneem's law. We are strengthening the tools available to the police and courts to safeguard victims, and we have also established a national policing centre for violence against women and girls and public protection with £13.1 million of funding, and appointed Richard Wright KC to lead stalking legislation review.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Too many women come to my surgery with heartbreaking stories of violence and abuse, sometimes when they left their partners, too many people falling through the cracks. Now, I would like to thank the Minister for her help previously in those cases, and not just that, but obviously before she came into office. It's a great comfort to me. I know people across this country that she's sitting on the front bench, but there's a lot more that we need to do. So can the Minister please set out how this government is going to help the women in my constituency of Loughborough, Shepshed and the villages be safer?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman and my honourable friend for his kind words, and I will continue to do that, well, for the rest of my life. Women and girls must be safe at home and in public, and that's why the Government is strengthening early intervention, improving police responses and ensuring women facing domestic or post-separation abuse receive protection and support. We are embedding VAUD considerations into things like transport guidance, updating national design standards to ensure public spaces are safer by design. Together, these measures will make communities across England and Wales safer, including women and girls in Loughborough, Shepsted and the villages, so that they can live confidently without fear.
Alex McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently met with a survivor of domestic abuse and stalking who has repeatedly moved home and then been followed by her perpetrator. She told me not just of the impact on her, but also on her son, who has repeatedly had to move schools through no fault of his own. After the last move, her perpetrator was permitted to move to a caravan park just a few miles away from her new place of safety and within a few hundred yards of where her son plays football. Although there was an exclusion zone put in place, her perpetrator was permitted inside it twice a week to attend parole meetings because asking him to travel further would be, and I quote, inconvenient to him. Can the Minister give some detail on how this government will support victims like the one I met recently to live safely in their homes after experiencing domestic abuse?
I thank the honourable friend, and I suppose I want to say from this dispatch box that I want him to be inconvenienced. Inconveniencing him is exactly what we should try and do, and that is why this government is tackling perpetrators, and that is essentially about shifting the focus onto those who cause harm. We are rolling out domestic abuse protection orders, removing the burden on the victims by placing stronger enforceable prohibitions and requirements onto the perpetrators, such as electronic monitoring and positive requirements to keep the victims safe. Importantly, a breach of this order is a criminal offence.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Child maintenance system is being used, as the Minister knows, to abuse women after they've left their relationship. One of my constituents lost her home after she was manipulated into selling it. Her ex-partner put the money into a joint account. He then bought the new house in his own name, left her, and is now living the life of Riley while she is doing 3 jobs and cannot get a penny out of him in child maintenance. Now, I've written to the Minister to ask to meet with my constituent and 2 other women. Will she please agree to meet with us so that we can give those women the visibility they need in holding the men into account?
Minister.
I thank the honourable lady, and her constituents' experience is not one that is unfamiliar, I'm sure, actually, to every member of Parliament who's ever dealt with the Child Support Agency, and that is why it was included in the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, to ensure that child maintenance and how that gets used to abuse women is no longer able to happen. But of course, like always, I'm more than happy to meet with her and her constituents.
Mr. Speaker, around 1 in 8 women are victims of sexual assault, domestic abuse and stalking in the year to March 2025. Victim support are concerned that ultimately there is not enough focus in the strategy, particularly the funding is not matching increasing demand. What assurances can she give my victims in Bath who are victims of stalking that there will actually be enough resource and enough funding for those services?
Minister.
I thank the honourable lady, and actually I pay credit to stalking victims and stalking organisations who took out a super complaint actually against, I think it was under the previous government, with regard to many different areas of what stalking legislation needed to change, and this government is enacting on every single one of the recommendations of that. And all I can say is that the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy that was announced had more than £1 billion worth of investment, of which £550 million will go into victim services, and I can assure her, as a victim of stalking myself, that I take it very, very seriously.
Katie Lamb, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy was announced, I asked the Safeguarding Minister whether she had considered the impact that mass migration is having on the safety of women and girls and why it was not mentioned. I wasn't sure from her response then what the answer is. Could she explain, please, whether the government will address this issue specifically as the strategy is implemented, and if not, why not?
Minister.
What I would say to the honourable lady and to everybody is that I don't care who you are or where you come from. If you abuse women in our country, we will come for you. And what I would also say is that there isn't any reliable data that I can't pull a lever in the Home Office and get the reliable data, and that is why under this government, unlike the previous one, we will start collecting it.
Colin Denyon.
Question number 5, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We understand how important the details of these proposals are to people. That is precisely why the government opened a public consultation to gather views on the proposals. Once the consultation closes, we will analyse those responses, which will help inform the development of the final earned settlement model. We've also committed to publishing the impact assessments for the settlement proposals, as well as the government's response to the consultation.
Carlo Daniel.
Mr. Speaker, 300,000 children living legally in the UK will face a decade of living in limbo under the government's earned settlement proposals, according to new research out this week by the IPPR. Their wait for settled immigration status will be extended by at least 5 years, during which many families will face no recourse to public funds restrictions. We know that that raises the risk of homelessness and destitution. So how does the Minister reconcile that poverty-increasing measure with the government's new child poverty strategy, which says that reducing child poverty is a moral imperative?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, firstly, when migrants enter the UK on economic routes, it is expected that they'll be able to support their families. We are maintaining that principle, and it's right that we look into how we can do that better in response to circumstances. We'll continue to ensure that migrant children are considered when making decisions on requirements for settlement. On the bigger picture, we've seen record, unprecedented influx of migration under the previous government that will put a massive strain on public services. So it's right that we extend this from 5 to 10 years. That's what the British people expect. That's what you hear on the doors. That's what your constituents are saying too.
Dr. Peter Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 6. Sorry.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We work very closely with our allies, but EU designations are a matter for the EU. It's the government's long-standing position not to comment on the detail of intelligence and security matters, including if specific organisations are being considered for proscription in the UK. But I can say that in concert with our international partners, we will use all appropriate tools at our disposal to protect the UK from state threats.
Dr. Peter Prince.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his answer. So, given Iranian malign influence on the streets of London, its web of proxies, the menace it poses to world peace, and recent reports that as many as 30,000 protesters may have been killed by the IRGC, will the UK actually join the EU, the United States, Canada and Ukraine in imposing further sanctions? And is it not time for our government to formally proscribe the IRGC, who are surely not the servants of the Iranian people?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he's right to raise his concerns in the way that he does. I can say to him and to the House that on the 13th of January, the Foreign Secretary set out the action that the government is taking in coordination with allies in response to the consistent threat that the Iranian regime poses to stability, security and freedom. And last week, the Foreign Secretary also announced a further sanctions package targeting 10 individuals and one organisation involved in human rights abuses in Iran. We're continuing to monitor the situation very closely, and we urge Iran to protect fundamental freedoms, including access to information and communications.
So, Julian.
Does the Minister accept that the IRGC is responsible for many acts of terrorism? And whilst we appreciate the difficulty that arises from it being a state organisation and the reluctance to prescribe a state organisation, isn't it a fact that Jonathan Hall, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, has come up with a formula to allow this to happen? If so, why doesn't the government bring this forward with maximum speed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're very grateful to Jonathan Hall for the work that he has done, and I can tell the right honourable gentleman that we're taking forward all of his recommendations on strengthening our state threats powers, including the development of a prescription-like tool for state threats. That will allow us to ban activity and the operations of foreign state-backed organisations.
Julian.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With asylum claims falling in Europe and rising here, we must reduce the incentives that pull people here. The permanence of refugee status in this country is clearly a pull factor, and so we are making it temporary. The ability to melt into our illegal economy lures people here, so we have lifted immigration raids to record levels, and effective removals send a clear message, and returns are now up by around a quarter under this government.
Mr. Speaker, illegal immigration, illegal working and illegal trading frequently go hand in hand and too often manifest in the proliferation of dodgy shops on our high streets. Now, whilst I welcome the shop raids in my Carlisle constituency last summer, without action to tackle illegality at source, the police and trading standards face a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Can the Minister please assure my constituents in Carlisle that this government will redouble its efforts to clamp down on both illegal immigration and illegal working?
Well, I can give my honourable friend that reassurance. Illegal working undermines honest employers, undercuts local wages and fuels organised immigration crime, and this government will not stand for it. Since coming to power, enforcement action nationwide has increased with an 83% rise in illegal working arrests, and we will be stepping up that action even further in the year ahead.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
One of the main reasons behind this false narrative that Britain is both broken is people's sense of despair that neither this government nor the previous government could deal with illegal migrants. It's simply driving our people mad. So just so may I give this advice to the government, if she'll forgive me. They're not going to solve this problem by getting rid of the Prime Minister or anything like that. What they're going to do is finally deal with the pull factor. And the only thing that will work is to arrest, detain and deport anybody who arrives illegally in this country and have a temporary derogation from any convention that prevents us doing it. If they do that, there'll be so much more confidence in the nation, the Prime Minister will be more popular and people won't drown anymore.
Well, look, Mr. Speaker, what I would say gently to the honourable gentleman, look, I'm always willing to listen to advice from wherever it may come from, but I would point out that in 14 years under his party in government, we didn't see any such action. And it is very easy, I think, to say from the sidelines, just deport everybody. If it was so easy to derogate from international obligations, I'm pretty sure the previous administration would have done it. That they're only now saying it from the sidelines, I think, says a lot about them and their attitude to government. There is no one silver bullet in dealing with the problems of illegal migration, and that is why I'm taking action across every potential forum, that is both on changing our human rights laws, passing legislation later this year on the application of Article 8, dealing with our appeals processes, absolutely talking about reform of the European Convention on Human Rights, which we are doing, getting illegal working raids up. All of these things are important steps to try to get this system under control. I am determined that we will deal with the problem of illegal migration, but there is no one silver bullet, and that is why I'm taking action across all fronts.
Katie Lamb, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, The Times reported that companies and company directors who have previously abused the work visa system have been allowed to continue sponsoring visas despite the government's promise of a clampdown. One social care business has been able to sponsor 116 visas despite being caught hiring illegally. As the Home Secretary just said herself, being able to work here illegally is one of the greatest pull factors. So what message does she think this sends to companies that break the rules?
Well, I think what the Shadow Minister should have first done is apologised for being part of an administration that actually opened the social care route that was open to such horrifying levels of abuse. That route was closed by this government. That was the right action to take. And since we've been in government, 1,000 sponsor licences have been revoked. We will continue to take action. We are already following up on the newspaper investigation that she references, and we will keep revoking licences so that only legitimate businesses with proper jobs are able to sponsor workers into our country.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British people have watched in horror over the past weeks as President Trump's ICE squads have murdered, kidnapped and oppressed people. Even infants and children have not escaped this rough treatment. Now, the Conservatives have suggested they would like to introduce a removals force styled on ICE, and we can only guess what the Honourable Member for Clacton would do if he was in charge, even if he concedes that ICE has gone too far on occasion. So will the Home Secretary condemn Trump's ICE squads, and will she reassure us that we will not see ICE squads on the streets of Britain?
Tom? Yeah.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unlike I think most of Westminster, I'm not plagued with America brain, and I don't spend any of my time worrying about what's happening over in the States. But as the Home Secretary, I focus on my day job, which is protecting people in our country. And he will know full well that we do not have anything like the sorts of arrangements that we've seen over in America. But without having armed immigration enforcement, we've already got record removals to just under 60,000 since we've been in government. We will go further, but we will do so in line with the arrangements we already have in place and our British values.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Number 10, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
The murder of Martha Giles in 1959 was particularly horrific, and I can only imagine the pain and suffering that her family have been through, given that the case is still ongoing and there has never been justice. I am advised that decisions around opening or closing the National Archives records on the murder of Martha Giles are a matter for the Metropolitan Police Service and not for us, but I'm very happy to facilitate the introductions that he might want with the Met Police.
Sir Gavin.
I know that the Minister is a deeply compassionate lady, and on the 12th of February 1959, Martha Giles was brutally murdered, leaving her work at New Cross Hospital in Wolverhampton, and she left behind 5 children. There's only one of those children that's still alive today, Mrs. Edwards, and she desperately seeks answers. I know that it's not within the Minister's gift, but if there's any way of being able to convene officials and officers in the Metropolitan Police just to be able to bring some closure on this awful chapter, it would be so deeply appreciated.
Can I thank him and again offer my condolences to Martha's family, who have been looking for justice for many, many, many decades. I am happy within the bounds of what I am allowed to do it for the right honourable member, and we'll make sure we make the appropriate introductions.
Dr. Ellison.
Question number 13, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are investing a record £140 million in state-of-the-art technology to make our communities safer. This includes rollout of live facial recognition, a technology that is already transforming policing. Investing in technology means more time for the police to be out where we want them, on the streets, fighting and deterring crime in our communities.
Dr. Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently met with Home Office colleagues to discuss the use of synthetic cathinones, often referred to as monkey dust, in Stoke-on-Trent. These substances cause significant harm to users and indeed to communities, and they are frequently sold via the dark web and imported through the post. So can the Minister provide an update on their work with the National Crime Agency and Royal Mail to detect illicit substances using technology, and advise whether existing opioid detection methods can be adapted or applied to synthetic cathinones?
Safe state.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for raising the scourge of synthetic cathinones. Let me assure her that the work between the National Crime Agency, Royal Mail and others continues at pace. The use of synthetic drugs is a concerning development in the global drugs market, but this government and law enforcement are taking action, and we continue to innovate and seek new methods for screening and identifying drugs using emerging technologies, including AI, to tackle this challenge.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited a major retailer in my Spelthorne constituency, and they reported that that corporately their systems are so clunky that to get information to the police when they have evidence of shoplifting, they had to resort to sending an officer round to the thing to film on their body cam footage from the corporates, the retailer's own systems. So as well as sorting out the technology within the police, would the Home Secretary also encourage and reach into those big corporate retailer chains so that we can have a seamless flow of information in order to drive down shoplifting?
Well, I'm very glad. I'm very pleased he raises that particular issue. I'm happy to look into the detail that he's seen in his own constituency. Let me assure him there is a lot of work happening with retailers. I know that there are different platforms that are being adopted. The pace of technological innovation in this area is really very quick indeed, and we will do everything we can to make sure all of these systems are absolutely joined up and that the police are in the best possible position to go after these criminals as quickly as possible.
Question 14, please, Mr. Speaker.
This government is restoring neighbourhood policing with nearly 2,400 additional neighbourhood officers in post since last September, and we're ensuring that every community has named contactable officers dedicated to tackling the issues facing their communities. Of course, the provision of in-person services such as front counters are for local police to decide. I want those police on our streets catching criminals.
Mr. Smart. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Communities like Woodley in my Hazel Grove constituency has been plagued by shoplifting on the precinct. We've had far too much antisocial behaviour, and recently we've had some really worrying violent incidents as well. Bredbury Police Station, though, was closed by the Mayor a few years ago, and we know many people want to access police services in person for all sorts of accessibility reasons, just because it's much more reassuring to have that conversation in person. Police also tell us that they can pick up on things in person that they just can't when they receive an online form. We Lib Dems have a plan for a police counter in every community, in places like supermarkets where people already are. What steps is the government taking to ensure that communities like Woodley can access police services in person?
Minister.
So every ward will have a named community officer that they can contact and get in touch with, which I think is the priority here. She talks about retail crime, which, as I said earlier, increased by 60% in the last 2 years of the Conservative government. So by us taking steps, for example, by making sure that the £200 rule that the previous government had in place, so that any theft in a shop under £200 was not even investigated by the police, we are scrapping that, and we are making sure that there are more officers in our community. I'm sure there are innovative things that can be done in terms of making sure that visibility is there, but having a named police officer that you can contact in your ward is massive progress on what we had before.
Mr. Speaker, Humberside Police and trade unions representing Humberside Police have raised concerns about potential closures of counters under Operation Balance. Can she offer any reassurance further to her remarks that will give assurance to my local community that they will be able to contact local police as and when they need to?
Minister.
Absolutely. Can I thank my honourable friend? And of course, people are worried about making sure they have access to their police officers, particularly when they need them, which is why we're introducing targets to make sure the response is quick and there when we need them, and why we are putting more money into policing. Police forces themselves will have £796 million additional funding this year, which is a 4.5% cash increase and a 2.3% real terms increase. And I'm happy to make sure and work with her to make sure our neighbourhood guarantee is being delivered in her constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 16.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our cross-cutting government strategy has committed £1 billion over the next 3 years to support victims of VOG, including domestic abuse. Some of what is in that includes £30 million uplift under this government on refuge and safe accommodation for victims of domestic abuse, and also millions extra on funding the DA perpetrator schemes, specifically targeting the most high risk of harm repeat offenders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After years of enduring domestic abuse, a constituent of mine came forward to Thames Valley Police. She was badly let down by process and communication failures, resulting in the perpetrator avoiding prosecution, despite a positive charging decision. She is now worried for her own personal safety and has a PTSD diagnosis. So I appreciate what the Minister has said she's doing to help victims of domestic violence, but what more can she do to make sure that they're taken seriously so that the victims do not have the same experience as my constituent?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman makes an incredibly good point, is that we would save ourselves a lot of time and people a lot of harm if we just got it right in the first place, which is why this government has invested £13.1 million specifically into a policing centre for violence against women and girls that seeks to look at all of the gaps in the system within policing and seeks to make a nationwide standards that they will be held accountable to.
Samantha Nibbler.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my constituency of South Derbyshire, I'm grateful to Derbyshire Wish, who provide domestic violence and abuse services and who use my offices for free in order to speak with victims of domestic violence and abuse in a safe and neutral environment. I wonder if the Minister can tell me what she is doing to tackle domestic violence and abuse in rural communities where isolation plays a significant part in this going undetected.
The Honourable, I pay tribute to the organisation in her constituency and across our constituencies, and tribute to her for doing that work within her own surgery. I would encourage the same of everybody, and I'm sure many do that. What I would say is that the rural communities experience domestic abuse the same as people in urban areas, but they have different needs that need to be met, and that is why this government, and I invite the Honourable Lady to join me in this, and any members in the House, will work with members from rural areas to look at really specifically what needs to be done to make sure that that isolation is, when police standards are written, fully taken into account.
Mark Pritchard.
How the police respond to domestic violence incidents at the first instance oftentimes is critical for the criminal justice process, but also interpreting the events on the ground. I know the Minister, who in my view does a very good job, by the way, likes to look at best practice across the world. Would she look at best practice in Europe where academics have proven that where there is a male and female officer responding to these incidents, that the process of prosecuting is often far easier as a result of having a mixed gender patrol where possible?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that suggestion, and I welcome and will make sure that our officials look up this particular study. I will do anything that shows an improvement in this area, and it never surprises me that actually gender parity in things makes things better. That's also another thing I've committed my life to.
Pam Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome the Government's determination to tackle violence against women and girls and to support victims. Would the Minister agree with me that improvements to our family justice system as well as to our criminal justice system are going to play a really important part in that?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady, and I think that whilst this is Home Office questions and people will rightly bring their issues with regard to policing across the country, around only 10% of victims of domestic abuse ever see the inside of a police station, ever interact with policing. So making sure that every other part of our system and the family court system and the family justice system and our civil courts absolutely have to play a part, and that is why they are a fundamental part of the violence against women and girls.
Question 17, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend is a great champion for Huddersfield's High Street, and I'm pleased to be able to tell her that tackling money laundering is key to delivering on this government's mission to make our streets safer and to deliver economic growth. The new High Streets Illegality Task Force will bring together departments and agencies to systemically disrupt money laundering and related crime on the High Street, while new funding will boost trading standards capabilities and fund an increase in law enforcement officers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Police operations last year, including in West Yorkshire, saw hundreds arrested and thousands of high street shops raided across the country. So can I ask what further steps are being taken to tackle money laundering, including connecting information across agencies and flagging suspicious entities so such operations can be closed down quickly?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to her, and we are taking more steps. And the new High Streets Task Force will look at whether the current data sharing between agencies in supporting enforcement teams is appropriate in order to maximise our response to be as effective as it possibly can be. The Government will also publish a new anti-money laundering and asset recovery strategy this summer. This will set out further ambitious measures to strengthen our fight against money laundering, including better sharing and exploitation of financial information across the system.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Organised criminality is behind much of the money laundering that we see on our high streets, and that's why my committee last week launched an inquiry looking at organised criminality and the role it plays in the crime we see in neighbourhoods up and down the country. Can the Minister set out what support the Home Office is giving to the National Crime Agency in regards to this issue, and how does he envisage the National Crime Agency working with the 12 mega forces that are envisaged in the White Paper and the National Police Force?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the chair of the committee for setting out the work that they're going to be doing. I have long believed that the importance of the work that we need to do, working very closely with the National Crime Agency to tackle serious organised crime, which is a blight on all of our communities. We're working very closely with the NCA to make sure that they've got the appropriate level of resourcing and the correct strategic priorities. I meet with the Director every single week. We'd be very happy to cooperate closely with the work that she's doing, and she's right to mention the importance of police reform. Obviously, we're looking very carefully at that process, and we'll make sure that we configure ourselves in a way that will maximise the ability of the National Crime Agency to tackle serious organised crime.
We now come to Topicals, Rupert Lowe.
Topical question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Justice Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this government pledged to restore order and control to our borders, and our work is taking effect. Since we took office, removals of illegal migrants are up 31% to nearly 60,000 since we took office. Forced returns are up 45%, and deportations of foreign criminals are up by a third. In December, we imposed visa sanctions on 3 countries, Angola, Namibia and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they have worked. Each of those countries is now accepting their citizens back. I know the public want us to do more, and we will. We will reform human rights law and our appeals processes to swiftly remove those with no right to be here. This country will always offer sanctuary to genuine refugees, but for those who do not play by the rules, we must be firm. The last Conservative government lost control, and it is we, the Labour government, that are restoring order to our border.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister knows, our independent rape gang inquiry hearings are ongoing, just a short walk from this chamber. Last week, I sat opposite one woman who was raped by between 600 and 700 men. She estimated that 98% were Pakistani Muslims. The evidence we are collecting is brutal. Again and again, we've been told of failed attempts to traffic raped and abused women overseas to Pakistan and elsewhere. Thankfully, those attempts failed. How many did not? Will the Minister agree to urgently review cases of missing girls in target areas and launch a full state investigation into reports of such trafficking?
Justice Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the testimony of the victims that the Honourable Gentleman has heard from is absolutely horrifying, and the grooming gang scandal was one of the darkest moments in this country's history. Victims and survivors of these hideous crimes deserve justice, and we will make sure they get it. Our inquiry is a full, statutory, independent inquiry with all of the powers under the Inquiries Act 2005 to deliver justice, and I would urge him and anybody else with any allegations of criminality or evidence of criminality to share that with the police immediately.
Tom Hayes.
Everyone's democratic right to protest within the law. In Bournemouth, Dorset Police has been forced to spend around £100,000 policing protests at the 3 asylum hotels opened by the Conservatives at eye-watering expense. Often protests have to be managed by neighbourhood policing teams that we, as a Labour government, are rebuilding. This means that they are policing protests rather than out on the beat in their neighbourhoods. When will Bournemouth's asylum hotels begin to close? Not just because they're bad for the people living within them and around them, but because of the huge cost to our local police force and the abstractions involved to our neighbourhood policing teams.
Minister.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman is a doughty champion for his community and has raised the issue of these hotels with me on multiple occasions. I know he'll continue to do so until they are closed. He is exactly right. The reasons he mentions, hotels are a very, very bad place to accommodate those seeking asylum. He will have heard the commitment from myself and from the Home Secretary. We will get them closed and get them closed within this parliamentary term.
Justice Secretary Chris Folk. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Deng Majek from Sudan is an illegal small boat migrant who was sentenced last week to 29 years in prison for the brutal murder of Rhiannon White. He stabbed Rhiannon 23 times as she desperately tried to defend herself. Given the timing of Majek's arrival in the summer of 2024, he would have been eligible for deportation to Rwanda. But Labour cancelled the Rwanda plan and instead accommodated this illegal immigrant in a hotel at taxpayers' expense. Does the Home Secretary now accept, It was a huge mistake to cancel the Rwanda plan just before it started, which would have seen Majek deported, thereby preventing Rhiannon's murder.
Well, let me say first and foremost, Mr. Speaker, that the murder of Rhiannon White was an abhorrent crime, and our thoughts are with her loved ones. And I would caution all members against using individual cases to make a bigger political point, as the Shadow Home Secretary has just sought to do. He knows full well his government's Rwanda plan was nothing more than a gimmick. £700 million spent on 4 volunteers going to Rwanda. There is no silver bullet in dealing with the mess of the migration system left to us by the previous Conservative administration, but we are taking action across every front to get illegal migration under control and to secure our border.
Never started because this government cancelled it. She talks about gimmicks. Her government's gimmicks have failed, and that is why cross-channel migration is up 42% since the general election. And I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, this is not an isolated case. Hundreds of crimes have been committed by illegal immigrants, including a 30-year-old woman raped on a Brighton beach, a 15-year-old girl raped in Leamington Spa by 2 Afghan small boat migrants, and a girl aged just 12, strangled and raped by 2 illegal immigrants in Nuneaton. So does the Home Secretary agree this cannot go on and that only radical action will fix this? And just like the Father of the House said earlier, we need to leave the ECHR and deport all illegal immigrants within a week of arrival, and then the crossings will stop.
Home Secretary.
Well, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is he's only picked up this new policy of leaving the ECHR in opposition, not one that they took up when they were in government, and I'm afraid he's just carping now from the sidelines, to which he has been condemned by the British people for failing to control our borders. It is this government that is sorting out the absolute abject mess left by the Conservative Party in our migration system.
Order. Mr. Philp. Can we just calm down, please? It doesn't look good on TV for anybody shouting somebody down. I'm sorry.
We are already taking action, Mr. Speaker. We will go much further, and we will not stop until we have restored order to our border.
Sir Gordon.
Mr. Speaker, city centre safety is a top concern of residents in Newport East, so I was pleased to hear from Gwent Police last Friday we're seeing crime coming down thanks to extra measures and resources. Can I also draw the Minister's attention to Gwent Police's new Project Vigilance scheme, which uses undercover officers to protect women and girls in the nighttime economy? And alongside this, what more is the government doing to make our city centres safer?
Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question? We are putting more money into policing. We're introducing respect orders. We're bringing back the rule that any theft under £200 must be investigated by the police. We are putting thousands more officers into our town centres. We're working with retailers to make sure we're using new technology to tackle crime. We're introducing live facial recognition to get these nasty criminals locked up where they belong. And I'm very pleased and very much looking forward to working with her and perhaps even visiting her constituency at some point.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In recent weeks, those warning that a rapid dip in net migration could harm public services and the economy span left and right, including commentators such as Fraser Nelson, not known for his softness on this sort of thing. It is no secret this government is struggling to deliver growth after its 2 damaging budgets and stubborn refusal to join a customs union with the EU. So is the Home Secretary totally certain that her plans on immigration won't further harm the economy and public services like our precious NHS?
Yes, I am, and that is because having an ordered migration system, both for legal migration and sorting out the problems of illegal migration, are absolutely critical to maintaining public confidence across the country and to make sure that we can hold our country together. So I back all of these reforms, and I know that they will have nothing but a positive impact.
Alice Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Old John Farnborough, we have a brilliant police team, but recruitment of officers is difficult because of the pay difference along the Hampshire-Surrey border, where officers can earn more by working just a few miles away, leaving our local police team understaffed and overstretched. What steps is the Secretary of State taking to address these recruitment challenges to ensure we have bobbies on the beat in every community?
Minister.
My right honourable friend makes a good point, and we need to make sure we're both paying our police well, which we have done through a pay uplift, and also making sure we are looking after our police force. The number of police leaving the service, not for retirement or ill health, but leaving the service because they were fed up with it, tripled under the last government. We will put a stop to that.
Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Girls were raped and abused by grooming gangs in Scotland, just as they were in England and Wales, yet they are excluded from the grooming gangs inquiry. Girls, no matter where they are in the UK, must get justice, and rapists, no matter where they are in the UK, must face the consequences. In response to an earlier answer, the Minister said of Vogue perpetrators that she doesn't care who they are or where they come from. So will the Minister please now do the right thing and include Scottish victims in her inquiry?
Yeah. Minister.
What I would say to the honourable lady is that it is for the Scottish Government to undertake an inquiry, because actually justice, unlike in Wales, justice is also devolved within Scotland, as well as education, as well as health, all of the things that will be absolutely vital facets of the inquiry that will run across England and Wales. But I don't disagree with her that there absolutely needs to be no stone left unturned in Scotland, and that is, and anything that of the work of the committee is found, we will make sure that that is shared with Scotland.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Security Minister give an update on the work of the Defending Democracy Task Force to tackle the level of disinformation on social media and in our democracy?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to him. The Defending Democracy Task Force is the fulcrum point that coordinates activity across government. We work very closely with other government departments, specifically on the issue of countering mis- and disinformation, not least as we move towards important elections taking place in May. This is an important body. It has recently had its mandate renewed by the Prime Minister, and we ensure that we work very closely with law enforcement in order to make sure that our democracy is properly protected.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last 2.5 years, our Jewish population had to put up with hate marches starting outside synagogues. Jewish businesses have been suffering hate demonstrations outside, and now shops that store kosher goods are being targeted by demonstrators. What action can the Home Secretary take to make sure that our Jewish population are protected and these evil perpetrators are brought to justice?
Home Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me condemn in the strongest possible terms all of the anti-Semitic incidents that he has highlighted in his question. This government will not stand for any anti-Semitism in our country. We will take every step we can across government to wipe out this evil from our society. He will know that I am reviewing police protest powers. I've already made some announcements on changes that we will make. Lord Ken MacDonald is conducting a review, and I will not hesitate to take further legal steps in order to protect our Jewish community.
Sonny Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What action is my right honourable friend taking to disrupt the finances of the organised crime routes facilitating illegal migration to the United Kingdom, and what steps is the department taking with international partners to prosecute those who are funding these operations both domestically and internationally?
Minister.
I'm grateful for that question. I can report to the House that we've made 4,000 such disruptions against organised immigration crime. We are working with partners from all of those flows of illicit trafficking of peoples across the world at every stage, of course, closely with our French neighbours, but all the way around the world to disrupt these flows and send that very clear signal to those who traffic in persons that their time is up.
Pete Wishart.
The Hall petition debate on indefinite leave to remain, where some 60 Labour MPs unanimously turned up to rubbish and disparage the Home Secretary's proposals. I got the impression they were highly unlikely to support that. So can she guarantee that any changes to ILR will be brought to this House for a debate and a vote?
Hear, hear.
Well, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is these are the right reforms. We have set out proposals for an earned settlement scheme. They are being consulted upon. That consultation closes in a matter of days, and the government will consider all of those responses, and any changes that we wish to make, we will do so in the usual way.
Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Town centre crime in Hartlepool has fallen by 15% in the last year, thanks to the brilliant work of our police force under the leadership of Helen Wilson. But there is far more that needs to happen. My constituents deserve to feel safe in their town centre. So can the Minister tell me what more we can do to make sure our town centres remain safe?
Minister.
I am delighted that town centre crime has fallen by 15% in my honourable friend's constituency. It has fallen in many towns across the land since this government came to power, not just because we're introducing new technology where we need to, live facial recognition and others, not just because we're introducing more neighbourhood policing, not just because we're changing the law to make sure all crimes are investigated, but because we're all working together to get this done.
David Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents are concerned about the now imminent closure of the volunteer-manned Pinner Police Station, part of a programme on the Mayor of London that leaves the whole of the London Borough of Harrow with no in-person access to the police. Thus far, the volunteers that man the front desk and I have had no response at all from the Mayor of London to our attempts to raise this issue. So will she intervene to ensure we at least get a response so the Mayor of London listens to my constituents' concerns?
Minister.
I'm sure the Mayor of London listens to his constituents' concerns, which is why we have increased funding into the Metropolitan Police, why we're doing everything we can to reverse the increases in retail crime that we saw under the previous government that we are beginning to tackle now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I visited St James Primary School in Haydock in my constituency where, after learning about the dangers of knife crime, Year 6 children are campaigning to install bleed control kits in their community should the worst ever happen. Can the Minister please assure them and all my constituents that this government is doing all it can to tackle knife crime, and will she join me in paying tribute to the children and staff at St James for their efforts?
Minister.
Absolutely. Can I welcome the conversation that my honourable friend is having with his constituents and children who I know are deeply worried about knife crime. We have a target in this government to halve knife crime in a decade, and I can say that since the start of this Parliament, knife crime has fallen by 8% and knife homicides are down by 27%, but we will not stop until we reach that target.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Home Office has said that a new licence to practice will be required for all police officers. Can the Minister explain how that will differ from the existing police conduct regulations, the Police Code of Ethics and the current police training programmes?
Minister.
The licence to practice is being introduced to make sure all officers, whatever stage in their career, are getting the right support, the right training that they need to do the jobs that we demand of them. We have said very explicitly we are going to design this with policing so that we can get this right, but it is about supporting police to do the jobs that we all need them to do.
For the message, James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recent comments from Rashid Afrin, the co-director of the Al-Roj camp in Syria, reported that several ISIS-linked individuals have been repatriated from that camp to the UK. Can the Home Secretary confirm how many individuals, ISIS-linked individuals, have been repatriated to the UK and whether, upon their return, they were held in custody or not?
Minister.
I hope the honourable gentleman will understand if I don't get into the specifics of that, nor do we comment on individual cases, but I can tell him that the Home Secretary will use all tools at her disposal to make sure that we keep the public safe.
Shocker Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to pass on my heartfelt sympathies to the family of Khalid Oladipo, who sadly, tragically got killed by a knife crime incident last week in the city of Leicester. I'm sure every member in this House does not want to see another life shortened and another mother's heart broken. So can I ask the Minister if she would back my calls for the government to appoint a dedicated minister to tackle knife crime?
Minister.
I am that dedicated minister, and it is my job to tackle knife crime. It is what I have campaigned on for many, many years, and I'm glad to say we are having some success. But every knife attack, every knife murder is an absolute tragedy, and we will continue to do all we can.
Final question, Helen Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The police officers and PCSOs in North Shropshire work hard, but the PCSOs' hours have been cut because of budget constraints, and there are no front desk services at all in my constituency, despite it having 5 market towns. Can the Minister outline how we're going to see better and more visible community policing in North Shropshire?
Minister.
The officer maintenance grant, which kept the uplift of officers, became a barrier to more visible policing and actually saw us reducing the number of PCSOs by half under the previous government. So by giving the police more flexibility, but by ensuring that we are putting 13,000 more officers into our communities, on our streets, where they can tackle the scourge of everyday crime, I think the honourable lady will get the right mix that she needs for her constituents.
Let the front benches change over.